Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It's nearly 24 hours after the Reds take a point at the Emirates. It's been some week, hasn't it? We've got 3 points against Chelsea. We took 3 points at Leipzig. It was one yesterday, but the consensus is maybe we all need to cheer up a little bit. And probably to help us do that a little bit, maybe David Lynch. David, it doesn't seem that sort of happy, shall we say, the fan base for a team that took a point at a difficult away ground.
Yeah, kind of amazed, to be honest. I mean, I don't know, really. It's sort of a strange one because I think, people were in the build-up to the match kind of pushing back against the idea that Arsenal's injury crisis was anywhere near as bad as people had made out. And yet, in the aftermath of the game, were thoroughly disappointed that Liverpool didn't turn up there and thrash them. So, kind of couldn't really get my head around which is it, were they over-egging their injury crisis or was it as bad as was made out? And, particularly when you go into a ground where the last 2 seasons you've been beat in the Premier League and against a side who finished above you the last 2 seasons, to go there, go toe-to-toe with them in an even game and get a point, which keeps them 4 points behind in the title race, which I hope Liverpool will be part of. For me, that's a pretty good result. But then I took a quick look at social media and kind of couldn't believe that nobody seemed to think that, or very few seemed to think it was a good result. So, yeah, kind of surprised by the reaction to it. For me, a very good point, good result, and you kind of move on from that and absolutely take it.
Yeah, and we'd have absolutely took it considering where we were at half time as well and how that was going. So it is right to get into the performance. And I know almost it's probably going to be broken down into stages, but what did you make of the overall performance and how we got on yesterday?
Yeah, I thought kind of classic game of two halves, really. I thought Arsenal were really dominant in that first period and deserved to be 2-1 up at half time. I think, Liverpool had problems that the manager you would have liked to see him solve a little bit earlier, if I'm honest. That it got highlighted on Match of the Day, actually, in the end, is that they never really got to grips with the idea of Havertz dropping in on that right-hand side. I think if he'd have dropped into a central position, he probably would have felt a bit more comfortable in dealing with it. But it just creating that overload on the right-hand side was just dragging McAllister out constantly, creating a massive gap in the middle, 2 passes, and Arsenal were in. And that was, even when Liverpool, they played some okay stuff at times in the first half, and they get the goal and they're back in the game. But it always felt like Arsenal were the dominant force in that first half. And so, yeah, like I say, they deserve to be there. But I thought second half, and this is what kind of baffles me about the idea that people are coming away saying Liverpool, were really, really poor. I thought second half, Liverpool were the dominant force. And I think all the statistics kind of reflect that, is that they kind of found a way through, solving that problem and then really had a foothold in the game. And I thought, Trent coming into more central positions in build-up was massive for them and really helped them in that regard. And defensively similarly as well, as just creating numbers in the middle to just try and stop those overloads. And I just thought Liverpool were by far the better team in the second half in the way that Arsenal were in the first. And so for me, if you have 2 halves like that, that's an even game and a point and a deserved point, really. And as I say, kind of the statistics all kind of reflect that. I think it's 6-3 on shots in the first half to Arsenal, 6-3 on shots in the second half to Liverpool. XG numbers end up pretty even. And this is Liverpool, like I say, away from home against the team who beat them twice in the last 2 seasons in the Premier League in this fixture, finished above them. So yeah, I'm just kind of baffled that people think it's a bad result. And I think part of it is that injury narrative. But again, Jota and Alisson missing, Chiesa would have been a useful sub. Harvey Elliott would 100% have been a useful sub in a game like this, would have been first sub, no doubt about it. So, yeah, just thought it was a very, very even game with a kind of game of 2 halves. Liverpool had problems in the first, solved them in the second, and absolutely deserved a point for that reason. I think Arsenal should be quite disappointed to have an even game at home, and Liverpool should be pretty pleased to come away with the point that keeps them where they are, really.
Yeah, it was strange seeing Arsenal head into the corner flag at like the 70th minute to start time wasting with 20 minutes left. That was just absolutely baffling. And one of the other things I found a little bit baffling, that Sky Sports kept talking about it, and we'll get into them a bit more depth, but as though it's high quality, a really entertaining game. But in the context, Kelleher, Raya, they weren't exactly flying around the goals. They weren't really having to make many saves. It was just a couple of times each they picked the ball out of the net, didn't they, in all honesty?
Yeah, exactly. I think you were kind of it's for 2-2 kind of mad to say that, really, isn't it? But I think you're right in terms of it wasn't end to end in terms of chance creation or anything like that. And like I say, 6-3 on shots to Arsenal in the first half, 6-3 on shots for Liverpool in the second. Not an awful lot of shots in the game. Wasn't just absolutely peppering the goal or anything like that. Or it was tight and tense, and there were really good moments, and I think that's what made it an engrossing spectacle. But in terms of high quality, absolute drama, I didn't think it was that kind of game. And I think two sides will feel that it was, like I say, just very, very even and kind of down the middle, and even that's what kind of surprises me, that people feel that Arsenal's moments of dominance have sort of some value higher than Liverpool's, because expected goals doesn't really reflect that. And as you say, it wasn't like Kelleher was getting peppered. Similar with Raya in the second half, really. It was just kind of an even game with not an awful lot of goal mouth action in it. And it ends 2-2, and you absolutely take that. And as I say, I think, Liverpool being away from home, that is a far better result for them, really.
Yeah, take the point and get out of London, no doubts about it at all. And I normally ask you a certain question, so I'm just going to refine it slightly. Which 6'4" French international centre-back was man of the match for you in this one?
Yeah, he was fantastic, wasn't he? I thought, in moments where Liverpool were under a bit of pressure, and Arsenal were continually trying to create situations, weren't they? We were dragging him out 1v1 with Martinelli, and I thought he absolutely kind of bullied Martinelli, and to the point that sometimes they were going shoulder to shoulder, and you could just see Martinelli kind of completely give up. He'd had enough. Didn't really fancy it. So that individual battle, he absolutely won convincingly, and just everything he kind of did, he did really well. And again, it's just no surprise, is it? We just know how good a player he is. It's just about, can you get him on the pitch consistently? But he's combining both things at the moment, and by being available consistently and playing really, really well. So yeah, another fantastic performance from him. I think he got Liverpool's man of the match vote, didn't he, as well? So he'll be happy about that. He's been asking for that for a while. So yeah, really, really good performance from him, I thought.
Yeah, Arne Slot reminded us in the post-match press conference he'd been asking for it for a while, and it was well deserved. And we talked about quality as well. It probably was a game that felt attritional. It didn't always have the top quality, despite what the scoreline suggests. The second goal, though, that was the moment of top quality from Liverpool, wasn't it, all round?
Yeah, really, really good. Just everyone doing the job right. I mean, Canate again winning that individual battle, nicking the ball, and then into Trent, little 1-2 there. Great ball in behind, perfectly weighted. Great run from Nunez. Great ball from Nunez again. I thought he was really, really good again. By the way, really liked a lot of his performance. And then Salah just puts it away, as he always does, and that's it. I think for Arsenal, if they were looking to hang on in that moment, then it's kind of unwise to try and do that against Liverpool, because they do have the quality to hurt you. And it took as I say, 3 moments of quality added up all together, and all of a sudden you kind of have a tap. You're in front of the goalkeeper with, for Salah, what is virtually a tap-in, really. So really, really nicely worked goal. And there wasn't loads of those in the game of great moments of quality, but if you can show that when it matters, and as I say again, in away games, in big games, then that shows you a really good team that's packed with quality.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all. And if you haven't watched that sort of replay 692 times, are you even a Liverpool fan at the moment? Because it's absolutely brilliant. And it's interesting, since we last talked about him, Darwin Nunez is doing his best to ram these words back down our throat in a big week, which has seen Chelsea away at Leipzig, away at the Emirates. He's been superb, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and kind of what's strange about it as well, what I kind of like about it. So in the Chelsea and the Arsenal games, he doesn't actually have a shot, which, we think about Darwin Nunez, some of his best performances for Liverpool in the first couple of years. He's been sort of getting 6 or 7 shots off. He's just been an absolute chance magnet. A couple of those have then found the back of the net. But I just like that he's just doing loads of sensible things. I mean, even before he gets the assist yesterday, which again is brilliant, but I thought he's playing well. Every time he kind of touches the ball, he's doing something positive with it. He's keeping it, because we had a big discussion about Nunez after the Bologna game, and that for me was almost an nadir for him. We were, 2 seasons of inconsistent performances, and then he's been out the team, and then he comes back in against Bologna, and I just thought he was he was poor in that game and just could not keep the ball. 33% pass completion was, for me, the standout statistic in that game. Is just underlined how poor he was. And yet in the last 3 games, all 3 times his pass completion rate has been above 70%, which is what you want. I don't think, interestingly, I think a quirk of this slot system we're seeing early doors is maybe, I don't think the centre forwards are getting a lot of shots, really. I don't know. I'm not sure why that is. If this is going to be a consistent theme, or it's just a weird early quirk at this point in the season. But the centre forwards aren't getting an awful lot of shots away. But so if you aren't going to be in the position to do that, then what you need to do is be available to get the ball up the pitch, use it well when you get it, just be helpful in build up. And that is absolutely what Nunez is doing. He's taking care of the ball, and if you then combine that, as he has done in the last 3 games, with getting the winning goal against Leipzig and then getting an assist that nicks you a point in this one, then that is absolute dreamland. And yeah, again, incredible that when he played as poorly as he did against Bologna, I was in the mood to kind of say I'm really struggling to see how he kind of turns it round at Liverpool, And you don't want to, I don't want to flip-flop on my opinion, by the way. I don't want to kind of go from one extreme to the other. And I think the key thing is that he's played well for Liverpool before, but he needs to keep consistency. So we do have to see that. But I did not see these 3 games coming at all. And huge credit to him. Because like I say, it wasn't just the assists yesterday. I thought every element of his game I really, really liked. And the way he pressed and he kept getting himself involved in duels, even if he didn't win every one of them. Just fantastic performance from him, and just want to see that continue now, because you can see in these performances there's potential for him to do well. So let's hope he can keep it up.
Yeah, no doubts. Even with the goal, I'll be honest, part of me was just expecting him to try and sky that or smash it towards the goal, but it was calm, it was perfect weight, and Salah opens his foot. So yeah, if we can just keep that going, Darwin Nunez, everyone will be happy. And one player that has also got a bit of stick recently, it's fair to say, Dominic Szoboszlai seems to become the newer whipping boy a little bit. But he made a big difference, didn't he, when he came on yesterday? If people were looking for what does Dominic Szoboszlai offer, he just shows the highlights from yesterday when he came on, doesn't he?
Yeah, I kind of thought it was a fair call to drop him. And I think Jones, you had to kind of reward his Chelsea performance. I thought Szoboszlai was the one out of the midfield that was kind of most questionable in keeping his position, and I just thought it was something that was worth trying. And one thing I would say as well is that first half performance in Liverpool's midfield is that they weren't being given the tools to succeed. I mean, I know Jones wasn't fantastic, and I was getting tweets about the idea that Jones was the problem, bringing in for Szoboszlai really disrupted things. But for me, even by the point Szoboszlai came on, I thought Liverpool had already improved. The setup had improved. They weren't getting outnumbered constantly, because there's a reason everybody was chasing shadows, is because it was always 4v3 in the middle. So you were never, ever going to look good in that situation. But what I thought was good about Szoboszlai is he comes on in a situation where Liverpool are already getting better in midfield and improving there. And then he just kicks them on again by showing his quality and showing his legs and everything else that he's got. So yeah, he's a massively important part of this squad, and has shown that he's going to start an awful lot of games this season. And the one thing you want him to show is a little bit more care around the final third, but he had so much regardless of that, and I thought he was really, really good when he came on, and it was a kind of really good combination of Slot getting the tactics right in the second half and making those tweaks, and then all 3 of his subs kind of seemed to come off and really, really work well for the team. So when you get those 2 things, that's why Liverpool are a much more dominant force in the second half in comparison to the first.
Yeah, I think that's important, that no one just goes into it's got to be Szoboszlai over Jones, Curtis Jones. It was more the system than anything else that was going wrong in the first half. That's the key thing to call out. And the one thing, Gary Neville, Sky, everyone couldn't help but build the narrative, the injury crisis, the apparent injury crisis at Arsenal, which Gary Neville pretty much likened to Platoon, the movie, I think. However, when you look at it and are honest that, yes, they were missing Odegaard. Yes, they were missing Saliba. But Liverpool were missing Alisson. Liverpool were missing Jota from their standard first choice 11. People said Calafiori, but at the same time, Timber started a lot at left back this season, realistically, as well. And he was fit, in that regard. That narrative was ridiculous, wasn't it? Because Liverpool could just literally lay out all their injuries at the same time, couldn't they?
I just found it utterly bizarre. I mean, again, I could have kind of understood the narrative continuing if Saka and Timber weren't fit, that would have been a real blow. But once they start, it's kind of out the window at that point, because as you say, they're missing Odegaard and Saliba. Saliba, through his own stupidity, by the way, he is definitely not injured. They're missing Odegaard and Saliba. So, yeah, two really, really important first-teamers. You could make an argument that Calafiori starts, but as you say, actually, Timber has started a lot at left-back, and I think up against Salah, being a left-footer coming inside, that Timber, there's a big argument that Timber would have started that game regardless. So, I think that was a tactical decision. So, yeah, in terms of missing first-teamers, they were probably comparable, really, Jota and Alisson versus missing Saliba and Odegaard. And so I just don't think that was an excuse at all for Arsenal, really. And I was just kind of surprised that continued into the match. And it's continued after the match, really, is kind of a judgment on, who's it a better point for. And again, I think the injuries are comparable because, again, they're missing Tomiyasu as well. But again, he wouldn't have started in that back four alongside, if you have Calafiori, if you have Timber or whatever, you can't fit them all in. So, it's like, for me, I would never say that Bradley was a big miss for Liverpool in this game because he wouldn't have got on the pitch, basically. So, you can disregard that. So, you can disregard half of Arsenal's injuries. And then, they get Saka and Timber back. And, I just find it incredible, really. I think one thing I always want to say about Arsenal and their injuries, and people decry it as luck or whatever, and they want to dismiss it. I would say I don't think it is luck. I think you should credit the medical team and the work they've done in keeping the players fit and the type of football they play. Maybe helps them to do that. And so it's, and it's an improvement we want to see Liverpool make this season. So, Arsenal haven't been lucky, but when they do suddenly start to get a little bit unlucky with injuries and they do start to get a couple mounting up, that doesn't mean then they're a crisis. They're in crisis mode, and it suddenly becomes a team that goes from being title contenders to absolute fodder, especially on the home ground where they never really lose. The idea that Liverpool should have turned up, Liverpool, who finished behind them the last two seasons, should turn up and absolutely dismantle them. It's just incredible to me, particularly with their own injuries considered as well. And, again, like I say, I think maybe too many Liverpool supporters bought into that by the end of the game and were feeling that Liverpool somehow should have come away with a better result. But, yeah, I find that absolutely incredible. And, again, you could throw in, if you're being kind, the fact that Gabriel goes off and the fact that they bring on Lewis Skelly at the end as well. But, again, Gabriel goes off with Arsenal leading 2-1 in a home game. They bring on an experienced international to come in for him. And then the sub at left back, again, Lewis Skelly is very, very young, but you're leaving Zinchenko on the bench. Again, another experienced international, a guy who's won multiple Premier League titles playing for Manchester City. That's a choice. That's not, you weren't forced into that position. So I just thought the injury situations for the two teams were pretty comparable. And the fact Liverpool have gone there and made it a very even game and took a point is something that's hugely praiseworthy. And I think Arsenal really should be disappointed that it ended up as an even game on the home ground, and that, Liverpool, that the injuries hadn't, because the injuries for me were kind of almost a non-factor. So, yeah, just amazed by how much that was played up during the game as well.
It's crazy. Even afterwards, you've probably seen it, the interview with Sky, it's the first question to Virgil van Dijk as well, about Arsenal's it. And he literally said, like, injuries, I thought they only had 2 out, which was completely true. At which point the Sky Sports reporter backpedals massively and goes, yeah, I suppose you had a few injuries, and name checks a few. So the narrative that people are steering into, I don't really get at all.
What's interesting as well is kind of, it was definitely used as an excuse for Liverpool at times last season, absolutely no doubt about it. But, Liverpool have shown last season, they go deep in the title race, they win a trophy, which Arsenal haven't done for a while, with an unbelievable amount of injuries. I mean, that would have been a good week for Liverpool to be missing the players that Arsenal were missing this week. That would have been one of Liverpool's best weeks for availability last season. So, are we all saying now that we think Arsenal's squad is so bad that it can't cope with a couple of key absentees? And if that's the case, then they've done really poorly in spending the money, I would say. And they want to maybe, have a think about that. If it only takes 2 or 3 injuries for Arsenal to be in crisis mode and expect to get slapped by Liverpool, then, yeah, you've got to question the squad building. And it does not bode well for them in terms of sustaining a title challenge this season, if this is going to be the case, because they get a couple more injuries, they really are going to be in trouble if this is the judgment that we're all making on their squad.
Yeah, maybe Arsenal fans will have probably forgotten, not be interested, that when Liverpool played in the Carabao last year, Sky Sports didn't even have pictures for all of their squad when the likes of McConnell, etc. came on. So just a little reminder there of how bad it can be. And one player, and I do want to talk about it because I probably, like a few, clocked Andy Robertson's performance. And I want to set this in context. I know you mentioned it on YouTube as well. I mean, for context, Andy Robertson is arguably in the discussion for Liverpool's greatest ever value signing, £8 million from Hull. In his pomp, a world-class left-back. There's no debates about that. Yesterday, though, it's probably one I want to forget quite quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, I mean, I totally agree with everything you said there, and we cannot forget how good he has been for Liverpool, genuinely world-class for a number of years. But there seems to be a suggestion as well off the back of this that he's been this bad for a while or something like that. I think that's one of Robertson's worst performances for Liverpool, arguably the worst performance of Liverpool. I don't think he's got anywhere near being that bad. Even if you say he's past his peak now, which I think is a fair argument, I don't think he's ever been quite as bad as he was in that first half yesterday. Really, really struggled. So I don't buy into the idea this is a regular occurrence, even if he's not quite up there as he used to be. He's never quite struggled like this. And again, there's another mitigating factor, which is that Saka is an unbelievable player. They kept trying to create those overloads on that side, which was worrying players around them. And so Robertson was ending up in 1v1s. He would still be extremely disappointed with what he did around the goal and getting nutmegged in that way, diving in. But yeah, there's just no getting away from the fact it wasn't a great performance, really. And left back's an area you kind of have looked at coming into this season and thinking there's possibility there to strengthen, and maybe Liverpool should have. Maybe they'll feel some regret about not doing that. But obviously, with so many other changes going on behind the scenes, that maybe they didn't want to do too much over the summer. But I think there is a clear argument now that that is a position where there could be a clear upgrade made, and that Liverpool should, in the next two windows, look to address that and look to do something there. That's not to completely write Robertson off, by the way. I still think he's capable of being an option there. It just depends whether it's him or Tsimikas, who is the other left back, and that's something Liverpool have to work out. But I think it's clear that they do need someone now who's younger, closer to peak years, because I just think he's lost that little bit of a yard in his defensive work, and he's a bit easier to beat than he used to be. And that, as much as you want to be defensively strong systemically and you want to sort of control all the situations, the fact is you are going to end up in 1v1 sometimes, and you need your fullbacks to win those. And Robertson isn't quite as adept at that anymore, which is a shame. It just happens to every player. But I think, like I say, I think it's clearly an area that Liverpool could look to do something and strengthen there, because I think, although I don't think Robertson's been quite as bad as he was yesterday consistently recently, I still think it showed that he's not quite what he was. And that's something Liverpool have to think about.
It is interesting, especially in this 4-2-4, because your fullbacks will get asked to defend one-on-one quite a bit, especially when we do get outnumbered in midfield if the opposition gets through. And it's a weird one, because I know you've been a long-time defender of Kostas Tsimikas as well, because he's come in for a lot of criticism over the years. But I know you said, as a backup left-back, as good as it's going to get type of thing. And aside from maybe the odd mad few minutes in a Champions League game right at the start, it's been a pretty decent season for Kostas so far when he's come in, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's possibly having a better season than Robertson at the moment. I think the problem there is that, like you say, I've always been a big fan of Kostas as a backup. The problem is, once Andy Robertson's level drops, then you've kind of got two lads who are playing at kind of backup level there, which I think is a little bit of an issue, and that's why Liverpool look weak in that left-back area. But I think, you look at Tsimikas' performances, and I think he has been very good, aside from that Milan error, and I think there were a few other errors in the build-up to that goal, but I think he has been really good. I mean, his crossing's always been fantastic. The set pieces or open play, he's always dangerous in possession. But he seems to be doing well defensively as well, and playing quite well. So I think I thought, again, he was just one of the many subs who came on yesterday and was really, really impressive. And it's, like we say, if Robertson's dropped off a little bit, is that now becoming an interesting competition there for who's the starting left back? is Slot being given a bit of a decision to make? I think, he's clearly started the season with Robertson in there as his first choice, but I think Tsimikas is making the case to push his way in. So it'll be interesting to see if there's this is the week now where you would do it, isn't it? You've got a League Cup game coming up and then a Premier League one. So if there's kind of a switch in terms of who is first choice there, this is where we get to see it. So really interested actually to see how that battle kind of plays out. But I still think, regardless, I think Liverpool could do with strengthening in that area, to be honest.
It is an interesting one. It's almost like it's thrust itself into the limelight off the back of this. But we did talk all summer about a left-sided defender, and we talked about whether it was a fullback like an Ainori type, or even a left-sided centre-back who can do a left-back, the hybrid like a Gavardi or Ake type, who we were looking at as well. I suppose with where we are at the moment, because there's a lot of debates and we don't seem to sign too many players, but January is right upon us. It really isn't far. Would you class the left back or a left-sided defender as above the midfielder, or is it still what it was for you at the moment? It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I think you would maybe put left back there purely on the basis that it's kind of, you could clearly, it's a clear upgrade in that you don't think that either Robertson or Tsimikas are probably operating at a world-class level. And you could bring someone in who is doing that and it instantly improves the first 11. Whereas if Liverpool get fortunate with injuries and rotation works out for them, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, there's real great balance there. It looks, two of the holders, which is the area you'd want to strengthen, are looking pretty good there as a partnership. It's looking really strong on paper, that is your first choice. I think left back, you could improve what you've got at first choice. But I think that what might block that is the fact that Liverpool have got two left backs on the books. Whereas in midfield, clearly there's room to move Endo on, and Liverpool were already looking for a central midfielder anyway. So, for me, I would say left back would be the bigger priority there. But in terms of the likelihood, I still lean towards them maybe going back in for a midfielder and seeing that's a more likely outcome for the upcoming window, really.
Yeah, we've not seen Liverpool adopt that culture, and understandably of almost bombing players out, which they'd have to do on the left side, a left back if one is to come in. So we'll watch that. And the only other point I wanted to sort of ask you about yesterday, and it kind of goes into a little bit what we've talked about the last few games, and I know you've mentioned it on your YouTube. They've had success with the 4-2-4. It's been a great start to the season, no doubt about it at all. But we saw against Chelsea, they dominated the ball by almost dropping someone in there. Yes, we picked up Cole Palmer, but they still had that numerical advantage. You saw yesterday as well, Arsenal dropped in Havertz, like you said, on the right. Sometimes even Martinelli was coming back and giving it them at times as well in the middle. Do you think that is something Slot will be looking at the moment to think, yeah, it's done well, but do you think an adjustment or tweak might be needed there slightly?
Yeah, I think kind of his big disappointment from these games, and again, you've got to factor in that Arsenal in particular is away from home, so it's always going to be kind of hard. But I think, he would have rather really the first half of both games, Liverpool being the ones to be imposing themselves tactically rather than having to work out what's going on and then react to it. Whereas Chelsea and Arsenal really kind of implemented their game plans and got on top of Liverpool, and then Liverpool kind of worked it out. You'd like to see Liverpool be the ones trying something a bit different to get at the opposition rather than trying to sort of solve problems on the fly. I think that will be his kind of key disappointment. But, you're not going to face teams of Chelsea and Arsenal's quality every week. So Liverpool probably are going to be dominant in more games going forward. And the fact is that results-wise, beating Chelsea and deserving to, and drawing against Arsenal away from home and deserving to, a pretty good performances and results in the end. So, like I say, I think he would like to be the more dominant force and forcing the tactical battle onto the opposition a little bit more. I still think he'll probably take a lot of the positives as well from it.
Yeah, there is a lot of positives. And just in case you didn't hear us right at the start, people, a point away at the Emirates is a good point. So, yeah, we'll take that.
Another thing, actually, maybe I would say as well, actually, is in terms of one thing he maybe would want to do as well is react quicker. But in terms of making that tweak, I kind of feel from him in that the players aren't fully used to what he wants to do. And so, with Jurgen, if you've got 4 years under your belt of saying, okay, well, can we go to sort of Trent inverting here so that we can sort the numbers out in midfield exactly as we did at Brighton away 2 years ago. And the players will remember and know that tactical setup. Whereas for Slot to do that, it's difficult because he hasn't got examples he can pull out, and they're not, he hasn't been able to work on absolutely everything he wants to in training. So, doing things on the fly becomes a little bit more difficult. He needs to get them in at halftime and show them then. And obviously they got away with that a little bit against Chelsea. Arsenal, they found themselves 2-1 down by the time he gets to halftime. So that makes it a little bit difficult for him, really. But I think that's something we'll see improve as he goes on and he gets more time with the players and he has more examples where he can pull one player over and say, tell them this, and change things as the game is going on. But that is something I think you'll want to be able to do rather than having to wait 45 minutes and maybe finding yourself 2-1 down or whatever.
It's true. We do forget how disjointed pre-season was with the Copa America, the Euros and everything like that. He has had little time on the training ground with them for his system and for his style. So, yeah, maybe as time goes on, it might be a little bit different. And Arsenal talked about injury concerns. So I do want to actually talk about ours a little bit because Slot talked about it he answered it fully in the press conference, didn't he? Saying about Jota, Chiesa. Maybe he almost intimated that Chiesa could be back in training. Same for Conor Bradley, could be with us tomorrow. I mean, it looked bad on the surface when you first thought about it. It's like none of them are fit. But actually, they don't seem that far away, do they, these players?
No, I thought that sounded really, really positive, actually. The idea that Bradley and Chiesa could be kind of in and around the squad for the League Cup game is massive because, again, I just want to see Liverpool make changes for this one. I know we'll talk a little bit about this, but I think having them as options at least to give you something to work with there would be important. And yeah, with Jota's an interesting one. It doesn't seem like he's broken anything, so I think that's hugely positive. I think if he'd got a broken rib, we're looking at a few weeks. So hopefully with it being just bruising, although I wouldn't have liked Tosin to land on me, to be honest. He's a big lad. But yeah, with it being just bruising, he doesn't look like it's going to be anything long term. So yeah, quite a positive injury update, really. And I think, the games are just thick and fast, aren't they, at the moment? So really do need as many squad options as you can get. So yeah, I thought it was good news.
And the only other one that it didn't really get mentioned too much, and again, he gave us a bit of a snippet because he had one of his black and white photos up on Instagram, Harvey Elliott. He would be one, like you said yesterday, we really could use at this current time and with the games coming up. It almost was expected that after the last international break, he might be close, but nothing's really being said. Is there any sort of time scale or time frame being given around Harvey Elliott at all?
Yeah, I kind of get the impression he's not. I don't know, that maybe there's still a couple of weeks or so to go, just from what I'm kind of hearing at the moment. It just didn't seem like anyone was massively kind of positive around it, that it was going to be anytime soon. So it's one of those where I guess with a break, you don't want to rush it. It's easy to get setbacks with those if you come back too soon to work in, and they can easily go again. So I think they're being showing maybe an excess of caution with that to make sure that then when they get him back, that it's going to be back for the long term. So yeah, not really expecting him to be in and around the next couple of games. I'll definitely say that, and then we'll see how it kind of goes from there, really.
Yeah, we could definitely do with him back around that Christmas period as the games come thick and fast. So yeah, probably not in the short term, but we'll have to see. And we always talk about the off the field stuff, and this one kind of came from nowhere, to be honest, David. That it's always seemed settled. There's been a lot of talk behind the scenes, and we've always put sort of Hunter and Fallows together, but it came out, didn't it, that Dave Fallows will be leaving the club. He's done his official statement at the end of this calendar year, so his importance in sort of scouting that way. I've seen mixed reactions. Is this a big deal, or is it more the case of, I've also seen, because he is 64, he has had 12 years at the club, maybe just feels it's the right time. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal when you get someone who's played such a crucial role over such a long time, and in a period where Liverpool's transfers have been one of their biggest strengths in terms of getting so few of them wrong and getting so many right, and that's been a big part of the journey to being going from kind of also rans to one of the most successful clubs in Europe again, and being a real powerhouse. I think you've got to say it's a blow, but I think what Liverpool will say and they'll point out is that it's also kind of they want the system to be the star here, rather than the way that they work in recruitment, and that they're so thorough in how they do it. That combination of statistical analysis, but also a huge amount of video work as well, and then obviously in-person scouting, and then personality references. It's the combination of all those things is why they're so good at kind of scouting, and not just Dave Fallows taking a look at a player and recommending them. It goes much deeper than that. Yeah. So they'd like to think, and you would like to think, that they can absorb this loss. But obviously, he's been a key figure down the years, and a big part of them implementing that system that has worked so well. So there's no, you can't say it's anything other than a blow, and say he's done incredible work at Liverpool. But it's nice to see that they've kind of worked it out together. It's been a decision where he's kind of delayed it a little to make sure they get themselves in a good position. And so it's given them time to kind of have a look who's out there and kind of move forward from there, really. So, not fantastic news for Liverpool by any means, but I'm sure they'll be ready to move on and get a replacement in. And hopefully transfers should work in exactly the same way they always have.
And fingers crossed with his replacement. I may be butchering this pronunciation, but the suggestions are, or a name that's come out, I think it's Marcus Pilauer, so well known in German football. It looks like quite a good CV, involved with Bayern recently, but also got the likes of Sancho, Haaland when he was there at Dortmund, links to Klopp. Have you heard anything around that name at all?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't heard anything on that in terms of any confirmation on whether that's the case. So it's an interesting link. I know he only left Bayern, did he, a month ago or so? So, maybe there's something in it, but obviously that could also be someone 2 and 2 making 5 or whatever. But, I'm sure Liverpool will be kind of close to having a replacement coming in because they've been given that time. They've known this decision's coming, so it's given them really good time to prepare and get ready for that. So I wouldn't imagine it's too long before we see a replacement. Whether it's him or not, I haven't personally heard anything on that.
Yeah, will be interesting. We shouldn't have to wait too long to find out as well. And other off the field bits, because I know you did a piece sort of for your Substack, and you mentioned it on your YouTube. Arne Slot start, because 6 away wins in a row, brilliant. Before yesterday, 11 out of 12. Even yesterday, going to the Emirates at a tough week and not losing at all. He even kind of alluded to it a bit, if you saw it in his after-match press conference, where they were talking about an easy start. He's like, hold on, you always say no game's easy in the Premier League at all. Yet when I do this, you are telling me it is quite easy. Like, which one is it a little bit? So we shouldn't underestimate just how good a start this is from him, should we?
No, absolutely not. We should be banging the drum about how good it's been, really. And I think people... It's just, I don't know, it's modern football fandom, isn't it? In terms of people don't want to get too carried away in case someone takes the mick out of them further down the line when things go wrong. But as much as that's true, and you don't want to go over the top, and nobody should be sitting here saying Slot's the best manager in the Premier League, Liverpool are going to walk the title, that, you shouldn't be falling into that trap. But equally, you've got to put this stuff in its historical context and say this is an incredible achievement, what he's done so far.
Yeah.
And, no Liverpool manager ever has won 11 of the first 12 games 11 of the first 12 games of any season. And the fact he's done it in his first season, with a really disruptive pre-season, coming in, replacing a legend who, it's a huge emotional loss to Liverpool. The fact he's come in and done that is absolutely incredible. And then he's backed it up again with a draw away at Arsenal, which, as I say, I think is a really good result as well. So, yeah, I just think it's remarkable achievement. And yes, it could go horribly wrong from here, but there's no getting away from the fact that the performances and the results have been very good up to this part of the season. And that, for Slot to do that, to do something Klopp never did, to do something that Shankly never did, that Paisley never did in any of their seasons, never mind first season, that is very, very impressive. And he deserves huge praise for that. And I also think it bodes well for what's to come under him. We'll have to see on that front. And like I say, you don't want to get too carried away. But also, we shouldn't be scared to say when things are good and impressive. And that absolutely is a huge achievement from him. So, great work from the manager and his players to do that.
It is crazy. Like the XG for and the XG against is brilliant. Even the players coming in like Nunez, Tsimikas, they are having an impact. It's like you said, it's not getting carried away, but he's still remembering just how good a start this really is at the moment. So fingers crossed it keeps going. And the only other off the field activity I want to talk to you about, you'll have seen the amount of headlines, the way people have interpreted what Trent Alexander-Arnold said in this Sky Sports interview. And we said last week, everything Trent says now is going to be under the microscope. There's no two ways about it. But probably for those who haven't seen it, there was a big deal made around him picking the option of which one he would like the most, whether it's things like Liverpool captaincy, the European Cup, and Ballon d'Or was something he wanted. He talked about, his drive or his belief that he could achieve that. Is this another storm in the teacup over Trent comments, or did you read anything more into it?
No, I think, like you say, I think everything he says at the moment is being analysed to the nth degree because of the situation he's in with his contract. I just don't think there was anything really in that, and I kind of get why he said it as well. I mean, I think the captaincy's a name for him, but I think we make, if he was playing at a level whereby he's winning the Ballon d'Or, you can see why that would have quite a bit of individual appeal, and it would obviously probably mean that Liverpool were winning trophies and that maybe he was the captain anyway. So I just don't worry about this stuff. And I think people are going to keep reading into these interviews until something gets sorted with Trent, but I don't think he's given any hints away whatsoever. And like I've always said, and I will maintain this, Liverpool are desperate to keep him. They're willing to recognise how important a player he is and the fact that he's a world-class player and homegrown as well. And Trent has given no indication yet to them that he's absolutely determined to go to Real Madrid on a free transfer. So I don't, there's no reason for me to feel any negativity around this until we hear any sort of concrete developments. And we know that work's going on in the background and talks are ongoing. It's just a case of getting those done now and getting it sealed. And I think you'd start to get worried if it gets to January and it isn't sorted out, because that's obviously when he can talk to other clubs, or officially anyway. But I still think, I still fall towards positivity on this one. I still think Liverpool will get it done.
And even yesterday, I mean, it definitely wasn't his greatest game. He really couldn't find one of our shirts half the time. But still, at the key moment, it's Trent showing that quality, isn't he? You could see by his reaction as well. He was pumped for it. He's still showing all the time, isn't he?
Well, that's it. I thought, I was on the ball kind of poorer than you've seen him for a while. But again, I thought a lot of that was down to the fact that Liverpool didn't have a great way of progressing the ball in the first half. Setup was completely wrong and was allowing Arsenal to... it was making it really difficult, and Trent's having to try Hollywood balls to basically get Liverpool out, and a lot of them didn't come off. But even in a poor game, he sends in the corner for the equaliser, and he basically sets up the second equaliser. I think it's just that is him all over, isn't it? Huge contributions in big games. He's just a big game player and vital, and that's why Liverpool will be desperate to keep hold of him. And I've seen a few comments there, by the way, in the chat in terms of, people seem to be resigned to him going, but I just don't know where people have got that indication from. These people might, you might be right to say he's gone, but you could effectively flip a coin on that. You may or may not be right, but I don't think he's given any indication, and Liverpool certainly don't know that he's off to Real Madrid yet. They're still in talks with his representatives over a contract. So anyone saying anything is done at take that with a pinch of salt at the moment. It's, Liverpool, as far as they're concerned, have got a great chance of keeping him and are in talks to do that. So I think people, don't be too worried yet or writing off that he's already gone, because there's no decision's been made like that.
Yeah, fingers crossed we get some news on any of them, I suppose, soon as well at the same time. And this coming week, this is interesting because Brighton in the Carabao, and having had such a good start, David, in the league and the Champions League. I mean, we've got a perfect record there, haven't we? The Carabao, are you thinking in terms of Gomez, Kwanzaa at centre-back, maybe Endo in the middle, and Carroll from the canteen playing alongside him? Are we going that drastic for this one?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think there's value in that. I just don't, I know you don't want to write off any competition, and it's been great to see Liverpool go deep in this competition and win it a couple of times in recent years. But I just think, they have to get the priorities straight. They have won this recently. It's not a massive importance. You've got a squad there that you can use. You don't want to be picking up injuries by going deep in this competition. I'd go as far as to say that losing this game on Wednesday is not that much of a disaster. It just isn't. I know the reaction if it happens will be people losing their minds, but I just think it's worth making a lot of changes for this one and just seeing how it lands and hoping that second string can kind of get you through, because I just think you've got to be really, really careful with the squad, because you get a couple of injuries and it already starts to be difficult to make rotations, and then from there it's kind of tricky. So I just think the manager, for me, should make as many changes as he possibly can, even starting a few players he doesn't massively trust, and just see what he ends up with. because this just isn't as important as the league and the Premier League, the league and the Champions League this season for Liverpool. And I don't want to see them hurt in any way by going too deep in this competition.
And I suppose the only other one on that, because I think we said we're probably expecting as much rotation as we possibly can. The only other thing to say in that, with, as you mentioned, with Saturday, Brighton at home, that's the big league game. Do you think any of those subs, and I'm thinking the likes of Gakpo came on and had an impact, Tsimikas, we even mentioned Szoboszlai, do you think anyone's almost played their way into that starting lineup for the Saturday league game, which should be the stronger one as well?
I think maybe Szoboszlai. I think just because maybe Slot will have just been convinced that he really likes the balance of that midfield, and it's not. I didn't feel it was Curtis Jones's fault that it didn't kind of work out first half against Arsenal. It was just a tactical thing, but I still think he might go back to that comfort blanket of wanting that at the weekend at home at Anfield. So, I think that he'll be the one who's kind of worked himself in. But I think because he didn't start against Arsenal, we might actually see him in the cup game for 60 minutes and then see him at the weekend as well. There's an opportunity to do that because Liverpool did rotate there. So, that's one of the kind of easy changes you can make alongside all the other kind of more obvious ones, as you say, at centre half or wherever. So, Szoboszlai, the one for me, I would maybe expect to be that change that comes in for the weekend game. But I also think he could start the cup game anyway.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. We don't even know whether Jota will be close. Unlikely. Connor Bradley, maybe Chiesa might get minutes. We will have to see on that. Yeah, it will be interesting how this cup tie lines up. And we always finish, ladies and gents, with wider football stuff. And I'm not going to lie on this, David. I had some pre-planned questions, and we're going to tear up the script completely because I'm sure you're seeing it on your phone as it's pinging for me. Erik ten Hag has been relieved of his duties as Manchester United manager. So that tweet is literally hitting from David Ornstein, Romano, all the normal people. Erik ten Hag has been dismissed by Manchester United with immediate effect. No surprise, realistically, people. All the suggestions are Ruud van Nistelrooy, give it to him till the end of the season, as the classic phrase goes at Old Trafford. I'm going to phrase this question carefully. This is probably a dark day for us Liverpool fans because we were quite enjoying this rain, weren't we, to be honest?
Yeah, that is a real shame. Gutted is maybe the word, I think. But I can't believe they've waited so long to do it. Really, I mean, even after I think the two results that saved his job was kind of or give him a little bit of a stay of execution was the draw against Villa and the draw against Porto. And even then, you're thinking, why? Do you see a world where you win the Champions League and the Premier League under this guy? And if not, you're Manchester United. So just get rid of him. What's the point? So amazed he's hung on for this long. It was absolutely inevitable that he would get sacked at some point this season. And yeah, Manchester United make a good decision for once. But you look at the recruitment from this summer, and I still don't think any Liverpool fans should be too worried about who they're going to go out next and get in as manager because. Yeah, they're still making some of the same mistakes that they did under the Glazers, even with Ineos there. So, unless that suddenly changes, then I wouldn't be too worried about what this actually means.
Yeah, someone's just tweeted, it's very wise that Ineos have made those staff savings of about 800 grand and cancelled the Christmas party because they're about to pay out 12 million quid in compensation as well. So, yeah, absolutely crazy. And the only other thing which I did want to talk about, it's big in football, isn't it? El Clasico. Barcelona absolutely thumped Real Madrid at home. Now, I've seen mixed reactions to this because some people have looked and gone, this is good for us because we're going to play Real Madrid soon. They look quite fallible. But then others have said, well, they lost this last year and then they won their league and the Champions League. Any sort of excitement for you with Real Madrid coming on this basis or still a deadly opponent for us?
Yeah, always kind of scared to death of them because, I mean, they don't even have to play well to beat Liverpool at times, do they? So it's I still think it's a really tough game. But I think there's an argument to be made that kind of Mbappe signing has unbalanced them a little bit. I never thought they were always playing well in all the games they were winning anyway, but it seems like maybe that has kind of tipped things against them slightly and they're struggling on that regard. So I'm really encouraging to see Barcelona just take them apart in that way. So I think you've got to take heart from that. And the fact it's at Anfield as well. So again, it's another factor. And Liverpool are playing in a different way under Arne Slot, a bit more controlled. So you've got to take some encouragement from that, I think. And I'm kind of really looking forward to that game. I just think, so sick of Real Madrid getting one over on Liverpool. I think it's a really good opportunity for Liverpool to kind of get that monkey off the back a little bit. So I'm really excited for that game. And it does help, and it does make you feel a little bit more confident that they're kind of struggling in their own title race. They were beaten by Lille, weren't they, earlier in the Champions League already this season as well. So, Liverpool at home at Anfield under the lights, big atmosphere, playing as well as they are at the moment. Surely they've got a chance to finally get one over on Real Madrid. So I can't wait for that one to come around.
Yeah, that will be some night under the lights at Anfield. Yeah, can't wait for that one either. And we're pretty much at the end, ladies and gents. So we'll give you a quick summary. Good news, Liverpool take a point at the Emirates. You should be happy. Everything is going well in that regard. The bad news, Erik ten Hag has left Manchester United in that regard. So that will dominate the headlines. And all it really leaves me to say is, as ever, David, for the time, the answers and the insight, it's much appreciated.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for all your comments, everyone, as well.
Yeah, very much. Thank you for the interaction today. And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.